Hello, my name is Aryan, and I'm a rising junior at Greenwich High School. This is my Milestone 2 video, where I'll be talking about how I set up my Raspberry Pi for object detection using libraries such as OpenCV, TensorFlow Lite, and NumPy. First, let me show you how object detection on my Raspberry Pi really works. Right now, I'm going to be running a file that is going to be able to detect images in a folder that I specify. So right now I'm putting in my model directory, which is going to be the TensorFlow Lite model that is made by Google on the Cocoa 2018 dataset, which I will show you later. And so if you just specify an image directory, which is for us going to be critters, we can see our model at work here. It's identifying a squirrel as a cat and a giraffe. So as you can see, the model is not very strong. Even though that was a cat, it was only 66%. And if we keep going, we keep seeing mismatched images. So the Cocoa is actually a huge data set consisting of over 200,000 labeled images of just common objects in everyday life. And with this data set, TensorFlow Lite was able to create a model and actually provide it to us for testing our object detection. To help me start object detection on my Raspberry Pi, I was actually able to use this GitHub repository from Edge Electronics to help me get started on my object detection. So as you can see here, he has Python detection files for images, streams, videos, and webcams, the exact same that I use for my detection on my Raspberry Pi. What I did was I basically used the command git clone to clone his GitHub repository into my Raspberry Pi files and download all of the stuff he has right here. I was then able to use a variety of necessary libraries such as OpenCV, TensorFlow Lite, and of course NumPy to help me run object detection. While setting up the Raspberry Pi for object detection, I actually ran into multiple issues, including version mismatches between TensorFlow and NumPy that I was running. So in this guide is around 3 years old. So the TensorFlow version that he used and the NumPy version that he used was completely different, and it had very different syntax. So I was getting several NumPy array errors on my Raspberry Pi. I simply fixed this by going from normal TensorFlow to TensorFlow Lite, which actually also helped me with better FPS on my Raspberry Pi, since the Raspberry Pi doesn't have as much computing power, and TensorFlow Lite is meant for Android devices, iOS devices, and Raspberry Pis. Another issue I ran into was when I was in my folder, I was actually not able to execute any of the files because the libraries I installed were in my virtual environment. So every time I have to run something, I always have to set up my virtual environment. Thank you for listening to my Milestone 2 video.